Many thanks to our friends on the 5. This is a Fox News Alert. Welcome to Hannity. We're broadcasting tonight from Washington, D.C., where members of Congress held their annual charity baseball game. Remember, just one day after a left-wing assassination attempt on Republican lawmakers. Now, we were in the stadium earlier tonight talking to some of those eyewitnesses, Republican members of Congress. And by the way, we'll play those interviews later in the show for you. But with all due respect, I am not buying this national kumbaya moment. It's not true, it's not real, and it's an outright illusion. Yesterday was a left-wing assassination attempt on Republican lawmakers. Now watch this dramatic video from the scene during yesterday's shooting rampage. Take a look.
Do we know where he's at? Do we know where he's at?
He's behind home plate.
The guy been shot. Is he okay?
Stay down! Stay down! Stay down! Stay down!
That video from just yesterday, so hard to watch. Now, the House Majority Whip, Steve Scalise, was badly injured, remains in the hospital. He's still fighting for his life tonight. Now, like tonight's game, maybe a nice attempt to show unity here. Let's not be deceived. Let's not pretend the vicious, divisive rhetoric, the vile hatred of the left, it's not going to end. In fact, I predict it's only going to get worse because Democrats, liberals, the media, they will not stop until they absolutely destroy this president's agenda. That's tonight's very important D.C. opening monologue. So as I said, we're here at our nation's capital tonight because yesterday, across the Potomac River in Alexandria, Virginia, a radical left-wing ideologue tried to carry out a political assassination against Republican lawmakers at a baseball field. Now, investigators, they're still trying to determine the motive of this sinister attack, but we do know a lot, don't we? James Hodgkinson was a Bernie Sanders supporter, apparently volunteered on Sanders' presidential campaign. He regularly expressed his extremist views on social media, referring to President Trump as a traitor on social media, writing that, quote, "It's time to destroy Trump and company." He also belonged to a Facebook group called Terminate the Republican Party. Now, while this monster's actions are horrific and disturbing, it's part of a much larger pattern that we've been seeing from the left-wing Democrats, the Destroy Trump media in this country. Now, they have created this vortex of hatred aimed at the president. For example, just this week, an opening night performance of Shakespeare's Julius Caesar in New York City's Central Park featured a Donald Trump lookalike, again, getting brutally stabbed and murdered. By the way, some taxpayer dollars. Then there's an example, of course, so graphic, we got to warn you every time before we put it up on the screen. This is part of a vile ISIS-style photo shoot. So-called comedian Kathy Griffin posed with a fake, bloodied, severed head of, you see it right there, President Trump. And there's also this hate-filled and threatening rant from Madonna. Remember back at the Women's March back in January? Here's her dreams of blowing up the White House.
And to our detractors that insist that this march will never add up to anything, you. Yes, I'm angry. Yes, I am outraged. Yes, I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
If you think a lot about blowing up the White House, maybe you should be investigated and maybe looked at by the Secret Service. And remember, before Madonna's vicious attack against the president, there was rapper Snoop Dogg in a music video. Oh, he was pretending to shoot President Trump with a gun. Take a look. Really, imagine if that was President Obama. How would the media react? And by the way, it's not just Hollywood liberals and leftists who are spreading this vicious, vile hatred towards the commander-in-chief. Of course, we got the Destroy Trump media and Democrats. They have been doing the same thing ever since he won on November the 8th. Take a look at some of this disturbing, many examples from the media themselves. Take a look.
I understand where you were coming from. I understand why you liked him. But this man is lying to you.
Trump's critics, those who are worried about this president and this White House, saw a live special television event brought to you by narcissism, thin skin, chaos, and deeply personal grievances.
This was a white lash. This was a white lash against a changing country. It was a white lash against a black president in part. And that's the part where the pain comes.
When he said today, America first, it was not just the racial, I should say racial, the Hitlerian background to it.
This is a very sad night for the country. You can't polish this turd.
When he called you fake news, what if you had called him a fake president?
He's there with his wife. He's there with his whole family. As I say, like the Romanovs. He's got Jared, who might be a part of this story, like hint, and he's got his daughter Ivanka. It's like a traveling royal Romanov family.
You can't defend what the President of the United States just said. If he took a dump on his desk, you would defend it.
And Democrats, well, they have made it a priority to target, attack, delegitimize, dehumanize the president pretty much on a daily basis. Take a look.
This executive order was mean-spirited and un-American.
Republican leaders and President Trump don't give a about the people they were trying to hurt.
I will fight every day until he is impeached. Impeach 45. Impeach 45.
This is a bunch of scumbags. That's what they are.
Those are very strong words,
organized around making money.
We've seen nothing that we can work, that I can work with President Bush on. And I'm trying really hard to find something positive. This morning he had 3 tweets. I was thinking he was more of a creature that stalked the night, that these things just came out at night like a vampire. And they tweeted these things, but now it's spread to the morning.
This is beyond psychotic, unhinged, and we've been telling you night after night right here on this program. Democrats, the left, the destroy Trump media, you know what? They hate this president. They will do now, say anything to delegitimize and destroy him. Now, for months, they have been trying to outdo one another. You know, one black helicopter, tinfoil hat conspiracy theory after another for months and months and months, night after night, launching new and venomous attacks. And after yesterday's shooting, the liberal Huffington Post, they had to take down a disgusting article that actually called for President Trump's execution. Take a look at the headline. Impeachment is no longer enough. Donald Trump must face justice. And here's the subheadline. Impeachment, removal from office are only the first steps for America to be redeemed. Donald Trump must be prosecuted for treason if convicted and a court of law executed. Really? Pretty disturbing. And by the way, if there wasn't a left-wing assassination attempt yesterday, probably that story would still be up tonight. Then, of course, the New York Times smearing former Governor Sarah Palin in an op-ed blaming her for the 2011 shooting of former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords. Palin had nothing whatsoever to do with what happened, which is why the New York Times had to issue a correction. And earlier today, Palin tweeted that she is talking to an attorney and exploring legal options, which, by the way, she should be doing. Do it, Governor Palin. That's my advice. And by the way, here's this thing about all of this. Everything we have showed you is it's less than 1/10 of 1,000,000,000% of the divisive, hateful rhetoric that is now the left in America. We can spend an entire week just playing tapes, just showing example after example. The problem we're now facing is that no one on the left has the courage, or very few, or the fortitude to speak out and stop the hatred. And that's because Democrats use this kind of vile rhetoric every single election. Every election, what? Republicans are racist, they're sexist, they're misogynist. Let's see, they want dirty air and water, they want to throw Granny off the cliff. And that's just part of their political playbook. Islamophobic, xenophobic, homophobic. It never ends. The left objectifies Republicans, especially conservatives, into something we are not. And they know the truth, but yet they contribute to this atmosphere where Republicans, we're not even human. If you're conservative like me, God awful. How do you even speak on television or radio? Now tonight, I know there's a kumbaya moment for the country. I'm not buying it. How do you feel about it? Joining us now with Reaction Editor-in-Chief, LifeZette, Fox News contributor, nationally syndicated radio talk show star.
Bravo. excellent monologue.
I want to say, let's go get together, but I don't have to forget all the crap and the truth.
Right.
And I'm not doing that.
No, Sean, you laid it out. And tonight, you're right. Nice show. It was nice spirit. That's all great. But you know, and I know, and I think most people watching Fox and most people who are sentient human beings know what game they've been playing for a long, long time. This has been going on long before Donald Trump. I mean, remember Condoleezza Rice, what they said about her? She was a house slave. Remember what they said about Colin Powell? He's in the house of the master. They were doing assassination plays about Ronald Reagan years ago. This has been going on, now amplified by a deranged left-wing media that is completely off the rails and enjoying somewhat of a renaissance during this period. They're making money off of it. They're certainly not condemning the type of speech that Maxine Waters and the DNC chair and respected celebrities are engaging in. I mean, how many people today criticize some of the things Maxine Waters has said about poisoning the water? She will not even go to the White House to meet with the president, she said, because she does not recognize him as a legitimate president of the United States. Now, you can say what you want, but if President Obama invited us to the White House, which he didn't do, but if he did, we would have gone. Of course you go. You disagree, but you would go.
Listen, I would have been there in a heartbeat.
Right.
I'd have loved it.
Right, but the idea that you are not going to go...
The first thing I would have said?
Right.
I've been right about you from the beginning.
Exactly. But the idea that you don't engage except in this cowardly, vicious, vile, politically terroristic approach.
Okay, here's what people are going to say about us tonight.
Yeah.
Oh, really? You can't stop for a night?
Yeah.
Okay, if a night would... If it really worked...
Would they? If this had been done
for a night.
If this had been done to Barack Obama, or this had been done to Nancy Pelosi, I'm talking about the mock beheadings, the Shakespeare in the Park, you would have Democrat congressmen on television 24/7 putting pressure on all of these entertainment companies and all of these celebrities and everyone who's propping them up. But today, I mean, we don't even hear many Republicans tonight speaking about this. I mean, they're having their nice moment.
I saw that everyone got sucked in. And I got to tell you,
I'm sorry, but it kind of made
72 hours. It's going to start happening.
I don't think it's actually helpful for them to do what they do, because it lulls people into this sense that, oh, it's okay, we're putting our arms around each other. See, we're wearing the LSU shirt tonight. Isn't that great? No, what would be great is to actually stand up and call out the people in your own caucus who are spewing this vile rhetoric that deranged individuals are marinating themselves in 24/7 on social media.
There was no prominent Democrat with the Kathy Griffin. Do you know of any?
No.
Was it Obama? Was Hillary?
No. None of them.
Was any prominent Democrat that said that is over the line?
No,
not one.
Not one.
Let's make more than this baseball game, which, by the way, I'm glad they're raising money for charity.
Oh, that's great. That's great. But I'm talking about this is a systemic viciousness, and those who would claim that there are those on the right who do this and those on the left. No. The stuff that's happening now, where at town hall meetings, congressmen are called every disgusting word, and then go home and find out later on there's a chalk drawing on their driveways. Their children are threatened. And they used to complain the Tea Party was violent. There was never any violence in the Tea Party.
Cleaned up.
Exactly. They actually clean their trash up.
You know what's really important? I feel we're just too reality based. I cannot sit here and be a phony and a fake and a fraud and act like this is real.
No,
it's not.
Nancy Pelosi was on attack again today. I mean, she was on attack again. This is what they do. This is part and parcel of what they do.
I'm in D.C. It's your home turf.
Yeah.
Laura Ingraham stays with us right after the break, and she's going to sing Kumbaya when we get back.
Yeah. Lock arms.
President Trump fires back against the attacks. Another late-breaking deep state attack tonight. This well-orchestrated effort to destroy the presidency of Donald Trump will get reaction. Jay Sekulow, Sarah Carter, Greg Jarrett are back, and also tonight, later, prior to the first pitch at tonight's congressional baseball game, I did stop by the game. You can see me right there. I did speak to several lawmakers, several eyewitnesses to what happened. I asked them about yesterday's left-wing assassination attempt, and that's a part of the story you need to hear, and that you'll hear tonight on Hannity. And welcome back to Hannity as we continue with nationally syndicated radio host, Life Z, Fox News contributor, Laura Ingraham. So I go down to the park. We're going to show, and I have interviewed the a lot of the Republicans that were there. And I also met this kid, Zach Barth. He works for Congressman Roger Williams. Roger Williams, the coach of the team, he's going to fly back to Texas. His foot gets operated on. This kid was shot in the calf.
I saw that.
Mo Brooks, who I've known from my Alabama radio days 27 years ago. All right, we're both supporting him for Senate. He was the one that put the tourniquet on this kid. I've known Mo for 27 years. He broke down on my radio show. Yeah. It's so traumatic. And I'm watching this kid. He got shot in the calf. I'm all right. I'm all right. He was texting his mother.
Right.
I mean, it's such a testament to who he is. Is this directly connected to the rhetoric?
I think about it this way. With social media, with the amplification of every word and every image, especially the images which are so disturbing of the type that we've just been discussing, it creates a desensitization. It creates a numbness to just how hateful and vicious and vile they are. And so when someone like Hodgkinson goes to these rallies, he hears terminate the Republicans, not disagree or protest, but terminate the Republicans.
And he was a part of the group, terminate.
Right, treason, the line you played about execute the president. It almost becomes, for a certain deranged segment, it becomes almost, in their twisted thinking, a moral duty to act for their own survival against Trump supporters, against media people who've supported the president. Obviously, Steve Scalise in the crossfire, this young man, the Capitol Police. So it's not just directed at Trump. It's directed at every voter, every conservative, everyone in a school who wears a Trump T-shirt in his graduation picture. Just tonight in Indianapolis, Make America Great Again, a flag flying from a truck was shot at. This is now not just like fun kind of goofing around, disagreeing with each other, calling.
It's so funny you say this. And the reason I brought up, and we've been at this game a while. Every election cycle, right? It's racist, sexist, homophobic, granny over the cliff, dirty air, water.
They have the menu. It's a tired menu.
I saw a metric today. On Twitter alone, if you put in the words assassinate Trump, over 12,000. Then you got the Madonnas. Then you got the...
People have to start going to jail. People have to start being prosecuted. There has to be repercussions for this type of behavior. And people that cloak themselves in the First Amendment. You have a right to say a lot of things. But when this becomes an incitement to violence, the court has found that is not protected speech. Now, you have to have an intent to incite, et cetera, so it's difficult to prove. But there at least should be a widespread condemnation and specific condemnation, not the type where, well, everyone does this and everyone has to stop. No, no, no. No one is severing the head of Barack Obama.
All right. If you think about blowing up the White House, now here's an interesting thought. We're not going to fall into the trap. Yeah. For example, Bill, I blame talk radio and Rice Limbaugh for the Oklahoma City bombing. Right. I'm not blaming Bernie Sanders.
No, of course.
Bernie Sanders supporters. No, this was one nut.
No, this is a deranged subset of radicals who believe that they should stop speakers on college campuses. If it requires burning cars, they should burn cars. If it requires shooting at police, they'll shoot at police. From Berkeley to Ferguson to Baltimore to what we saw in Middlebury, Vermont. Middlebury, Vermont, the violence. There's a lack of respect across the board. I love spirited debate. That's fine. Yeah. But the lack of respect, and I think you tagged it, the dehumanization of people. Once someone becomes less than human, then you can do a lot of things to them.
So, by the way, we're going to get hammered. Oh, those two not joining the Kumbaya.
Now,
by the way,
send me a memo when I care.
All right, great to see you.
Great to see you,
we'll talk a little bit about the heroism, by the way, of these two D.C. Capitol Police. Unbelievable. They walk right into an open field against a highly powered rifle with a pistol. It's almost like you have put your life on the line right there, knowing you're going to die. Amazing courage. And also, the deep state strikes again late tonight. Anonymous sources, once again, late at night, leaking information about President Trump. Tonight they go after, well, let's see, collateral damage. His son-in-law, Jared, of course, to destroy the president, hurt him, prevent him from fulfilling his promises to you, the American people. Jay Sekulow, Sarah Carter, Greg Jarrett. They'll break it all down. And highlights from my visit to the Nationals Park, where I spoke to members of Congress about the horror more of yesterday's left-wing assassination attempts on GOP lawmakers.
Good evening and live from America's News headquarters, I'm Jackie Ibanez in New York. House Majority Whip Steve Scalise still in critical condition tonight following another surgery today, but doctors say he has improved in the last 24 hours. This as Republicans and Democrats came together for their annual congressional baseball game. The opposing sides paying tribute to Scalise and the other victims shot and injured Wednesday morning at a GOP practice for today's game. Meanwhile, investigators continue to look into this guy, the shooter's possible motivation. They continue to look at his cell phone, computer, and social media profiles. Meanwhile, the jury in the sexual assault trial of Bill Cosby will keep deliberating tomorrow, despite telling a judge today they were deadlocked. Tomorrow will mark the fourth day of deliberations. Cosby is accused of drugging and assaulting a woman at his Philadelphia home back in 2004. I'm Jackie Ibanez. Now back to Hannity. For all of your headlines, log on to foxnews.com.
And welcome back to Hannity. So the deep state, they are out for revenge yet once again, and of course using one of their favorite liberal outlets, the Washington Post, to try and destroy President Trump and everyone else around him, get as much collateral damage as they can, and now they are out for blood. Their goal is very clear: overturn the election results, forcing the president out of office and stopping him from fulfilling his agenda. And that is tonight's mini monologue. All right, earlier tonight, once again, another late-night drop by the Washington Post, which has now a long track record of being absolutely, positively dead wrong in the things they report, citing, quote, again, officials familiar with the matter. Oh, they can't mention the names like ever. That sounds so trustworthy, doesn't it? Of course, this night is about special counsel Robert Mueller is now investigating Jared Kushner's finances and business dealings. Now, this comes out after another late night drop last night by the Washington Post. No sources, anonymous sources, reporting that the special counsel was investigating President Trump for possible obstruction of justice. You know what? There's so much to unpack here. Let's explain point by point what's actually going on. No one else in the media will. First of all, the Washington Post is nothing more than a liberal smear machine with a god-awful track record. Now, the Post was wrong when they reported that the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, threatened to quit because of James Comey's firing. Rosenstein actually said in an interview at a D.C. local station the exact opposite, and he said it on camera. And they never apologized. And by the way, the Post also was flat out wrong about James Comey. Oh, just before he got fired, he was asking for more resources for the phony Russia investigation. Well, then it was debunked by the FBI director, acting FBI director, Andrew McCabe, who testified under oath. Sorry, that never happened. And the Washington Post is not the only member of this destroy Trump media that has gotten these things wrong. ABC, CNN, oh yeah, one of the tops of the list there, the New York Times, they've all done the same thing. Next, and I think this is the most important part, it is now very clear what is happening. There is a fourth branch of government. It's called the deep state. They are working day in and day out to destroy, literally, President Trump. They have targeted him. And frankly, anyone who dares to be associated with him, anyone that works around him. They can't get the president, which so far they haven't been able to do, then that means they will go after his family, his wife, his daughter, his 11-year-old son, and anyone that works for him. By the way, and it's playing out in this case, this is now after his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. And if the deep state, by the way, and the media, well, if they can't take down Kushner in this case, they'll just move on to the next target and go right on down the line one by one until they find somebody that did something wrong, or they'll just create some type of perjury trap. Now, this deep state is purposely leaking information to destroy the presidency of Donald Trump. Now, this is the biggest act of retribution that we have ever seen from the deep state in the history of this country. It is a clear and present danger. Now, thankfully, tonight, President Trump is fighting back on Twitter, writing, quote, "They made up a phony collusion with the Russian story, found zero proof, so now they go for obstruction of justice on the phony story." Nice. He also tweeted, "You are witnessing the single greatest witch hunt in American political history, led by some very bad and conflicted people. Make America great again." And then later he tweeted about Hillary Clinton and her obvious questionable activities, writing, quote, "Why is it that Hillary Clinton's family and Democrats and their dealings with Russia are not looked at, but my non-dealings are?" And of course, quote, "Crooked Hillary destroyed phones with her hammer. By the way, it's so true, right? She used bleach pit. Remember, she bleached the emails. She had her husband meet with the Attorney General days before she was cleared. And they talk about obstruction. What we're seeing now is the deep state, they want retribution. They're not going to stop until the president is gone, out of office, or worst case scenario for him, nothing he wants to accomplish, nothing he promised gets done. Whoever leaked this information tonight, last night, to the Washington Post, everyone else who's leaking important classified information, every single one of them now need to be arrested, prosecuted. Those are the people that must be in jail. They're trampling on our constitutional rights. It's time to get rid of every Obama deep state holdover. It needs to happen fast. These people now become, as I've been telling you, a threat to this country, a threat to the promises that were given to you back in November. Joining us now with reaction, Fox News anchor and attorney Greg Jarrett, CircaNews.com, Sarah Carter from the American Center for Law and Justice, their chief counsel, also works with the president. Jay Sekulow is with us. All right, Jay, big, broad question.
Yeah.
What is going on here in as best a way you can explain to the American people? And if you think I'm wrong on anything, please tell them.
This is a constitutional situation. People ignore the fact that what we're talking about is a special counsel investigating the President of the United States. Purportedly, by the way, these are leaks coming from who to who. So I don't know if the leaks are valid, and I don't know if I certainly don't trust the Washington Post on any of this. But if what they're saying is true, if that is in fact true, that they're leaking this information and they're investigating the President of the United States for what he had authority to do under the Constitution, what the Constitution rests in the President, that is a serious issue. So I think that, and when I kind of alluded to this last night, but there's a constitutional issue here. I mean, I've spent my career doing constitutional law. People have, some have criticized the legal team that is representing the president here, but they don't know the scope and nature of the cases that our firm and what I've done, what Mark Hasowitz's firm has done. But this is a constitutional issue too. Don't forget that.
Yeah, by the way, and we got this Jamie Gerlich, who is the attorney, and I think you know Jamie well. Worked for the Clintons a lot of years. But anyway, we don't know what the report refers to. It would be standard practice for the special counsel to examine financial records to look for anything related to Russia. Kushner previously volunteered to share with Congress what he knows about Russia-related matters. He will do the same if he is contacted in connection with this inquiry.
So they're leaking something that doesn't exist. So there's no controversy, and they're saying sources are telling us that this is, which has been out for 3 weeks.
Right.
Okay, that's what sources are telling us.
By the way, unnamed sources, Jay.
Yeah, always.
Let's be right.
Well,
Always
5 yesterday, unnamed, and we couldn't even tell what departments
they
they were
won't
from.
even mention. All right, let me go to Sarah, then we'll get to Greg in here. All right, so the president makes a great point. I would rather stay on Hillary because I think her crimes are so beyond the pale and it's so overwhelming and incontrovertible. You have done a great job. The meeting on the tarmac, as the president talks about, with Loretta Lynch. Then, of course, would you mind not referring to this as an investigation, but a matter? And then your breaking story. She was in. Did she put the kibosh on anything, regardless of the evidence?
I think that's what sources and lawmakers want to find out. People want, there's enough evidence here to say that Loretta Lynch, needs to be questioned. There needs to be a moment where she is put in front of everybody to answer these questions. This communication that apparently Comey, and he did brief lawmakers on, was between two political figures. And it basically stipulated, don't worry about anything. Loretta Lynch will basically put the kibosh on any kind of indictment if it comes to it against Hillary Clinton. So my question is this. Everybody is going after this obstruction of justice story against the president. What about the evidence that's pointing right in the direction of Loretta Lynch? And even further, Sean.
So overwhelming.
Well,
this is the bureaucrats. That's why this fourth branch of government.
Well, but listen to this. These leaks are coming from people that are supposed to be impartial and running an investigation, right? If that's where they're coming from.
They're not. They got an agenda.
But they have an agenda, and that should concern everyone.
Greg, you wrote a great column today about Mueller. He needs to recuse himself. Talk about the conflicts.
Well, amid all the president's tweets, he's never tweeted that Mueller is hopelessly conflicted in violating the law and should resign, and the president should actually demand that he resign. The American people should demand he resign. He's violating the special counsel law, which says you can't serve if you have a close relationship with a central witness, which is James Comey. And we all know of their longstanding close personal relationship. Now, the president can't fire Mueller, but Rod Rosenstein can and should. And the moment he fires Mueller, he should himself recuse from the case, because apparently now he's a key witness in the firing of James Comey. Do we really expect Mueller to sit in judgment of the conduct of his own boss, Rosenstein, and to judge the credibility of his close friend and protege, James Comey, versus the man who fired Comey? It's theater of the absurd.
It really is. All right, well, stay right there. More with Greg, more with Jay, more with Sarah right after the break. Also, prior to tonight's congressional game, I did go to Nationals Park. I spoke with Republican lawmakers, many of them eyewitnesses to what happened during yesterday's assassination attempt. We're going to play you some of those interviews straight ahead. And welcome back to Hannity's. We continue with Greg Jarrett, Sarah Carter, Jay Sekulow. All right, so let's go. I'll go to Greg first. This is important, Greg. Bring in the whole issue why. If we start comparing and contrasting with Loretta Lynch and Hillary Clinton, how is it possible when we do have overwhelming, incontrovertible evidence and obstruction and laws broken that never gets talked about? We're the only ones that bring it up.
It is bewildering and confounding. If you look at the statute on obstruction of justice, it doesn't apply to the president because there's no lie or bribe or threat. But if you juxtapose it to Loretta Lynch, yeah, there's a pretty good case that she not only engaged in obstruction of justice because there was a lie attached to what she was insisting Comey say publicly, but there's also misconduct of office, using a federal agency for political purpose. That should be investigated.
Let me go to Jay. She used bleach pit. Okay. She used bleach. She destroyed blackberries that she said she never had.
I want you to...
Wait a minute. She signed off on 20% of uranium going to Putin, and her foundation got millions.
And the FBI didn't do anything about it. They cleared her. Which, by the way, this
statute of limitations, my friend.
Forgetting the statute of limitations. James Comey became judge and jury in that case. People tend to forget this.
Temporary.
He took over and said, you know what, the attorney general, in his view, is not capable of making a decision here, so I am. Well, number one, that should have then gone to the deputy attorney general, like a procedure. Right. It shouldn't have been the FBI director.
It's a recusal procedure.
Of course. And what did James Comey do? James Comey decided he was going to take it upon himself to determine the outcome of whether there should be litigation or not. No reasonable prosecutor, he said, would have brought that case. You know what the problem is? I would have filed a motion to dismiss. You know why? Because you, the Attorney General of the United States, makes that decision,
Sarah?
not the FBI director.
But former Director Comey made that decision while the Russia investigation, those who were handling that investigation were irate, angry. They couldn't talk about this openly because they were bound by the investigation and the classified nature of the investigation. But it eventually came out. It came out so much so that Acting Deputy Director McCabe had to admit it before, in his testimony. So he made that decision acting as if the entire investigatory part of the FBI that was handling the Hillary Clinton investigation basically said, we looked at it, there was nothing here, move on. That's not true.
Greg makes raises a really important point here, and that is, people are getting all caught up in the what if and the leak from this. And I think these are significant. But you have to look at this case in totality. When I do a case at the Supreme Court of the United States, I got to look at the totality of where this is going.
All right, just because you argued before the Supreme Court and I didn't, it's so cheap to bring it up.
No, here's why. Because every case has a theme.
I'm kidding.
I know that. Every case has a theme. Greg just pointed out something. What if Supreme Court justices were doing this? What if Supreme Court justices were deciding, well, you know what, these are interesting things, but I'm going to decide it before the briefs and without the cases?
I got to roll.
You'd say no. They
we'll
can't
have you back tomorrow. All of you. Thank you. We're going to stay all over this. I promise you, no one else is doing it. And coming up, I took a trip to National Park earlier today. I did speak with some of the eyewitnesses, Republican lawmakers, about yesterday's horrific left-wing assassination attempt. We'll have much more as Hannity continues.